Candidate for the U.S. Senate in Iowa, Zach WAHLS. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Brian.
So we have some major news out of Iowa that really did capture the entire attention of the country, and that was that there was a state legislative seat that was flipped, a 20 some odd point flip from red to blue from the 2024 election when Trump won that district by about 11 points to when Caitlin Dray won that district just this week by about 10 points. So a major flip. And so how does that make you think about Iowa as you're running right now in terms of, I know a lot of people will write the state off. How are you thinking about the state, given what we've seen in the last 24 hours?
Well, Brian, it's really exciting for a couple different reasons. First and foremost, even though this is probably what got a lot of the audience's attention, given the fact that this got national headlines, this is actually the fourth consecutive special election with a 20-point Democratic overperformance in just the last 6 months. This is the second state Senate seat that we have now flipped in Iowa that was won by Donald Trump in 2024. So, needless to say, there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm and including the fact that Caitlin actually broke the Republican supermajority by winning this seat. Our campaign had the opportunity to campaign with her this past weekend during Get Out the Vote. Our supporters raised over $7,000 directly to Caitlin's campaign to help make sure that she could stay competitive in the media wars. And it was a real honor to have the chance to get to know her during the course of the campaign and to knock doors with her this past weekend. Talking with a lot of Iowa voters who were really upset with the fact that the Trump administration has not brought down costs like he promised they would, and the fact that Republicans have been a rubber stamp for his agenda, including Senator Joni Ernst, that has actually made cost of living higher for most Iowans rather than lower.
Now, as it relates to Joni Ernst specifically, I'm going to throw a clip right here on the screen of a comment that got her a lot of national attention.
You are arguing about illegals that are receiving Medicaid benefits, 1.4 million, 1.4, they are not eligible, so they will be coming off. So people are not, well, we all are going to die. So, for heaven's sakes, folks. Okay, no.
So can I have your reaction to that comment? I know that it's a couple of months old by now, but I think the sentiment probably still remains if you're Joni Ernst.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that comment has really put her on the back foot, and I think really put this race on the map, not just here in Iowa, but all over the country. There's been a real groundswell of support for our campaign against her because Iowans, I think, saw, and so many of us all over the country saw just how out of touch she is. I don't think it's a comment that she necessarily makes 12 years ago when she's first running for the U.S. Senate. I think it's a clear example of how she's really gone to Washington, and I don't think Iowans are happy about that. I think it just demonstrates just how out of touch she is, and the fact that she's no longer the person that she once was.
As it relates to your race specifically, there was some polling out that tested a bunch of Democratic candidates against Joni Ernst. You scored the highest, and in this hypothetical matchup, you scored 45 to 44 against Joni Ernst. So how are you thinking about that polling in terms of when you're speaking to folks in that state? And the reason I ask is because, a lot of times when we have these states that have consistently voted red, and I think the last time Iowa voted for a Democrat, if I'm not mistaken, was 2008 for Barack Obama. Is that correct in the presidential?
2012, President Obama
2012.
carried it in
Okay.
his reelection. Yeah.
So it's been a minute, and I think that we think of a lot of these states as not worth expending energy and resources in places that are just trending in the opposite direction. And so what did that poll result tell you, despite kind of the common knowledge that people might have about your state?
Well, I think one thing that's really interesting in that poll is that Joni Ernst favorability lags 17 points behind where Donald Trump is. So there's an enormous number of a number of people in the electorate who still approve of Donald Trump, but have an unsatisfactory view of Joni Ernst, which tells me that there is an enormous number of Iowans who are willing to give anybody a second look who's not Joni Ernst. But our message is clearly resonating with people, which is why we're the strongest candidate to defeat Senator Ernst next November. We were the only candidate who, when voters learned more about the folks who are running, actually moved ahead of Senator Ernst in a direct head-to-head matchup. We know that she's vulnerable, and we know that the agenda that she has voted for is uniquely bad for Iowa. Tariffs have been devastating for our farmers and for our light manufacturers. The cuts to Medicaid are going to have a devastating impact for rural healthcare providers. Mass deportations are not going to be good for our state, and cuts to SNAP are not only going to hurt struggling families, they're going to have a devastating impact on farm incomes, grocery stores as well. And so we know that Joni Ernst has been a rubber stamp for this agenda that is actually raising costs by doing things like ending investments in clean energy that are going to increase utility bills by hundreds of dollars a year in our state. So from my perspective, I think it shows conclusively that Senator Ernst is very vulnerable in 2026. And the only thing I would add, Brian, is that Iowa, despite being perceived as being more Republican over the last few years, as late as 2020, we had three of our four members of the U.S. House were Democrats. Back when we had Abby Finkenauer, Cindy Axne, and Dave Loebsack. Our state auditor, Rob Sand, continues to hold statewide office. He's a Democrat who has consistently won statewide elections. And Iowa is, in fact, the third most likely state in the country where voters split their tickets between Democrats and Republicans. And so there's no doubt that Donald Trump has been popular in our state. He's won this state in 2016, in 2020, and in 2024. At the same time, Joni Ernst has never had to run in a cycle where the environment is better for Democrats. She's consistently been underperformed Donald Trump in 2020 and the Republican candidate for governor in 2014. So this will be the first time where she's ever had to face voters in a climate that's actually positive for Democrats. And we believe that we are building a coalition that can not just bring new people into the Democratic Party, but can actually win over independents and Republicans. That same poll saw me winning independents by almost 20 points. And in fact, even winning 7% of voters who voted for Donald Trump in 2024, more than any other Democrat in the race.
So we've spoken a lot about kind of the negative attributes of Donald Trump and Joni Ernst and the case against those people. But I think, it's important to recognize that there has to be an affirmative case for you as well. And so in terms of what your affirmative case is for voters, that's not just how bad Trump and Ernst are. What has been most resonant in terms of the message that you're bringing to voters?
Absolutely. Well, some of your audience may recall a speech that I gave back when I was a college sophomore about marriage equality and defending the freedom to marry for my two moms and for all Iowans. And I brought that same level of courage to my entire work in politics and over the last 7 years of serving in the state Senate. I think Iowans are looking to people who have the political backbone to take on leaders in both parties when they're not working for Iowans, whether that means standing up to your own party when it's necessary, pushing for our party to do better and actually be more effective in representing our constituents, or be willing to stand up to Donald Trump when that's what it takes and he's pursuing policies that are bad for Iowa, like the tariffs, where Joni Ernst, on the other hand, has been a total rubber stamp. And so from my perspective, we are laser focused on Joni Ernst. We're focused on the fact that she's been a rubber stamp for an agenda that is increasing costs, that is not growing paychecks, and she has become a part of the problem that she said she'd solve. Back in 2014, she ran for office, said that she would only serve 2 terms in the U.S. Senate, and now she's gearing up to launch her campaign for her 3rd term. It's exactly the kind of typical Washington, D.C. behavior that people in Iowa are sick of, and that's why they're ready to make a change.
When you have gone around the state, have you had the opportunity to meet with or talk to Republicans or independents, Trump voters, whoever it may be, who are kind of disillusioned by what they're seeing from the Republican Party, which is this, very clear bait and switch? Trump came into office promising lower costs, lower groceries, lower housing, lower rent. All he's done is launch a trade war that's exacerbated all of those costs. He promised to release the Epstein files. Now they're engaged in the biggest cover-up in American history on that. They promised to, end the Ukraine-Russia war on day one. That hasn't happened. Promised to make IVF free. That hasn't happened. And yet they always manage to find enough political capital to give millionaires and billionaires tax cuts. And so there is this very massive bait and switch happening at the hands of people like Donald Trump and Joni Ernst. Have you heard from the actual voters, though, kind of echoing that sentiment?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about exactly the issues that you just outlined, Brian. And I'll tell you, that is resonating with people. We aren't just reaching out to Democrats for the events that we're hosting, whether they're in big cities or small towns. We're reaching out to those independents and we're reaching out to Republicans because in order to defeat Joni Ernst in this state, that is what it is going to take. And there are enough people who are frustrated by all of the chaos and the fact that Washington, D.C. is more focused on things that are not lowering costs for Iowans, that they are coming out to our events. They are endorsing our campaign. We're the only campaign so far to have received support from across the political spectrum. And we were the first campaign to receive grassroots donations from all of Iowa's 99 counties. And not all of those donations came from registered Democrats. We are building a new coalition that is going to bring people together, defeat Joni Ernst, and bring some real generational change to Washington, D.C. If I'm elected, I will be the youngest member of the U.S. Senate, although I will be a little older than Senator Ossoff was, and he was first elected back when he came into Washington. And so we feel like there's a lot of enthusiasm for the campaign. And it's not just coming from Democrats. There are a lot of independents and even some Republicans who are ready to make a change.
Zach, what would it mean more broadly if Democrats are able to win in this offensive opportunity in what is otherwise a pretty dismal Senate map that we're contending with?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting to 51 seats in the U.S. Senate this cycle, and we can't just get to 50 because J.D. Vance can break the tie. We need 51 seats in the U.S. Senate, and getting to 51 without Iowa in this cycle is going to be exceptionally difficult. It's part of why we're trying to build a strong 99-county grassroots campaign that learns the best lessons from the Obama campaigns in 2008 and 2012, that puts a real emphasis on meeting voters where they are. And in some respects, just kind of getting back to the basics, right, of actually talking with our neighbors, our family, our friends, the people we see at church or at coffee or at the grocery store about why this campaign matters, and then trying to actually make Iowa a better state along the way. One of my favorite things that we're doing in our campaign is when we distribute our yard signs in the communities that we are visiting, we ask folks, we reach out to the community service agencies in those areas, we ask, what supplies do you need? And then we ask our supporters to bring those supplies in exchange for a yard sign. We've gathered nearly 1,000 pounds of supplies to community service agencies across Iowa that are unfortunately in desperate need of these supplies because of where things are with the economy right now and the cuts that are happening in Washington. So we're not just waiting for election day to build a better state. We're getting to work right now.
And finally, there are going to be a lot of people asking folks for funds and donations, and so why is it important that they donate to a state that they would otherwise have in their mind is redder and more difficult to win than some of the easier pickup opportunities?
Again, to get to 51 seats in the U.S. Senate, we have to be competitive in Iowa and we have to defeat Joni Ernst. And we're not waiting until the primary is over next June to get to work on building out the statewide operation. We're starting today, because if we wait until next June, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and it's too late. But because this message is resonating with people and because we have some of the early resources that we need to begin that work, we're asking people for their support. They can go to our website, zachwahls.com, to learn more about the campaign, to make a contribution, and to get involved. We've got lots of grassroots volunteer opportunities all over Iowa, and we're looking for support because that's what it's going to take to build a grassroots operation that's strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Senator Ernst and her billionaire and corporate backers. We made the decision on day one, we're not taking a dime of corporate PAC money. We are 100% people powered, something that I wear with a badge of honor. And I think when we talk about cleaning up the political corruption and being willing to stand up to the establishment in both parties, this is a great example of putting our values into action. But we can't do it alone. We're counting on grassroots supporters all over Iowa and across the country to make this work possible. And so if this resonates with you, we would love to have your support. And I hope that I can count on folks who are interested in learning more to go to the website and to chip in.
Awesome. I'll put that website right here on the screen and also in the post description. If you're listening on the podcast, it'll be in the show notes. Zach, appreciate your time. Best of luck in the campaign trail.
Thanks, Brian.